Rain hammered the streets of Prague all night. Police lights painted the wet buildings blue and red. Inside the Grand Valence Hotel, nobody spoke above a whisper. Room 417 was sealed from the inside. No broken windows, no sign of forced entry, no weapon, no blood, yet Adrian Keller was dead. Detective Elias Voss stepped into the suite slowly. The air inside felt wrong, cold, heavy, like the room itself remembered what happened. Keller sat frozen in an armchair near the balcony doors. His eyes were wide open, his mouth hung slightly apart. Pure terror remained on his face even after death. The forensic team searched every corner. Nothing. One officer looked nervous. "I've never seen anything like this." Elias stayed silent. He noticed the untouched glass of whiskey beside the body, still half full. No poison inside. The television flickered quietly in the background with static. A hotel manager stood near the doorway, shaking badly. "He called reception 3 times tonight," the manager whispered. "He kept asking if someone was outside his room." "Did anyone see a suspect?" Elias asked. The manager swallowed hard. No one entered the floor. Elias walked toward the balcony. 17 floors above the empty streets. No escape route. Locked room. Dead man. No killer. Then Elias noticed something strange. The victim's fingernails were cracked and bloody, not from fighting, from gripping the chair, as if he died trying not to move. "Forensics estimate time of death?" Elias asked. "Between midnight and 1. Elias checked the security footage himself an hour later. Adrian Keller entered the suite alone at 11:14 p.m. No one entered afterward. No one left. At 12:32 a.m., Keller suddenly appeared on camera running toward his door from inside the room. Panicked, sweating heavily. He looked behind himself repeatedly. Then he froze, like he saw someone standing directly in front of him. Keller backed away slowly, his hands shaking violently. Then the footage glitched. Only 3 seconds. When the image returned, Keller was lying dead on the floor. Elias replayed the footage again and again. Nobody appeared. But something bothered him. Keller's eyes. They were fixed on someone standing close enough to terrify him to death. The next morning, Elias interviewed hotel staff. Most remembered nothing unusual, until a young waitress asked to speak privately. Her hands trembled as she sat across from him. "I heard him screaming earlier that night," she whispered. "What did he say?" She hesitated, then leaned closer. "He kept saying the same sentence over and over." Elias stared at her. "What sentence?" The waitress looked toward the interrogation room door nervously, then answered quietly, "He's here." A long silence filled the room. Elias wrote the words down carefully. "Anything else?" The waitress nodded slowly. "He said, 'The man never needs to touch anyone.'" Elias stopped writing. Outside the station windows, thunder rolled across the city, and somewhere deep inside his mind, the first real fear began to grow. Vienna looked beautiful in the snow. Music drifted through the grand ballroom of the Hartmann Foundation Gala. Politicians, doctors, journalists, all dressed in black and gold beneath crystal chandeliers. Dr. Marcus Rayen stood at the center of the room smiling for photographers, one of the most respected surgeons in Europe. Calm, confident, untouchable. 3 hours later, he was dead. Detective Elias Voss arrived, while guests still crowded outside the building. Police struggled to control the panic. Inside the ballroom, overturned champagne glasses covered the marble floor. Witnesses described the same terrifying scene. Marcus Rayen suddenly stopped speaking during his charity speech. His hands began shaking. His face lost all color. Then he stared into the crowd, at someone. Ren stepped backward slowly as if he recognized a nightmare. "He's here," he whispered. Guests turned around searching for whoever he saw. Nobody suspicious appeared. But Ren kept staring, breathing harder, sweating heavily. Then he screamed, not loud, not angry, a scream of absolute terror. Seconds later, he collapsed in front of hundreds of people, dead before paramedics reached him. No injuries, no poison, no physical attack. Exactly like Prague. Elias stood beside the body in silence. The same frozen expression remained on the victim's face. Fear, pure fear. A police photographer approached carefully. "There's something else," he said quietly. He handed Elias a small evidence bag. Inside was a black envelope. No stamp, no address. Only the victim's name written across the front. Elias opened it carefully. Inside was a photograph. Marcus Rayen standing alone outside his apartment at night, taken from far away, without his knowledge. On the back of the photograph, a sentence was written in black ink. "I already know what you did." Elias felt cold suddenly. The same envelope had been found in Adrian Keller's hotel room after his death. Same handwriting, same black paper. Someone had targeted both men long before they died. Hours later, Elias reviewed security footage from the gala. Hundreds of guests moved through the ballroom. Nothing unusual, until one camera caught a man standing near the rear exit. Tall, thin, dark coat, motionless. The figure stood completely still while chaos erupted around him. His face remained hidden beneath shadows. Elias zoomed in. The timestamp showed something disturbing. The man appeared exactly 30 seconds before Marcus Rain panicked, then disappeared after the death. No camera captured him leaving. Elias replayed the footage repeatedly. Something about the figure felt wrong. Not violent, not rushed, calm, like he already knew what would happen. Later that night, Elias sat alone in his hotel room studying both victims. Two powerful men, different cities, different lives, but both received black envelopes. Both died terrified. Both claimed someone was standing near them, and neither had been touched. Elias rubbed his tired eyes. Then his phone rang suddenly. Unknown number. He answered carefully. Only breathing answered him. Slow, controlled breathing. Then a quiet male voice spoke. "You're looking in the wrong direction, detective." Elias froze. "Who is this?" A soft chuckle came through the line. "They were dead long before I arrived." The call ended immediately. Elias stared at the silent phone. Outside, snow fell quietly across Vienna, and somewhere in the city, someone was watching him too. The rain followed Elias back to Prague. By sunrise, photographs of the second victim covered every news channel in Europe. The headlines all asked the same question. How do healthy men die from fear alone? Inside the investigation office, tension filled the air. Detectives argued over poison theories, drug exposure, experimental chemicals, but every test returned clean. Nothing had entered the victims' bodies. Elias ignored the noise around him. His eyes stayed fixed on the black envelopes spread across the table. 2 victims, 2 photographs, 2 warnings. He studied the handwriting carefully. Sharp lines, controlled pressure, no hesitation. Whoever wrote the messages felt calm while doing it. That disturbed him most. A young analyst entered carrying new files. "We found connections," she said. Elias looked up immediately. "What kind of connections?" She placed folders on the table. Both victims attended the same private rehabilitation program 15 years ago. Elias frowned. Rehabilitation. Psychological trauma counseling. The analyst opened the files. Adrian Keller had attended after a nervous breakdown. Marcus Wren joined 6 months later. Both sessions were held in a private clinic outside Bucharest. Elias flipped through the documents slowly, then stopped. Several names inside the records were blacked out. "Who authorized this?" he asked. "No idea," the analyst answered. "But someone buried most of the patient list years ago." Elias leaned back quietly. Someone powerful was protecting the past. Hours later, Elias visited Keller's widow. She lived alone in a massive apartment overlooking the river. Her face looked exhausted before the interview even began. "Did your husband ever mention being afraid recently?" Elias asked. The woman hesitated, then nodded slowly. "He changed 2 weeks ago." "How?" "He stopped sleeping." She walked toward the kitchen silently. He kept checking the windows at night, locking doors, closing curtains. "Did he say why?" Her hands tightened around a coffee cup. "He thought someone was watching him." Elias removed the photograph from his coat carefully. "Have you seen this before?" the widow gasped softly. "Yes." Elias stared at her. "When?" "It arrived 3 days before he died." "Why didn't you report it?" "Because Adrian burned it immediately." Her voice began shaking. "He said if the police became involved, terrible things would happen." Elias leaned forward. "What terrible things?" The widow looked directly into his eyes. He said someone finally remembered the fire. Silence filled the apartment. Elias felt his pulse slow. "The fire," he repeated. But the widow suddenly realized she had said too much. She stepped back immediately. "I want you to leave, Mrs. Keller. Please leave." Elias watched her carefully. Fear, not grief, real fear. The same fear he saw on the victims before death. Later that evening, Elias returned to his office and searched old European fire records. Thousands appeared, too many. Then he noticed something strange. One apartment fire from 20 years earlier had restricted access, location Romania. Casualties 11 dead, cause officially unresolved. The case file had been sealed. Elias opened the surviving witness list. Adrian Keller, Marcus Wren, and 5 more names, all still alive, for now. At the bottom of the file, one final detail appeared. A child survived the fire. Male, age 9, name, Luka Volkov, status, missing since the night of the tragedy. Elias stared at the screen silently. Then his office lights suddenly shut off. Darkness swallowed the room. The computer monitor remained glowing softly, and taped to the screen was a black envelope. Elias stopped breathing. He had locked the office himself. Slowly, he opened it. Inside was a photograph of him standing outside police headquarters earlier that morning, taken from across the street. On the back, only 4 words were written: "You're finally getting close." Elias did not sleep that night. The photograph remained on his desk until sunrise. Someone had entered his locked office without triggering alarms, without leaving fingerprints, without being seen, and now the killer was watching him personally. By morning, the task force expanded across 3 countries. Every surviving name connected to the Romania apartment fire was placed under protection. But Elias already knew it would not matter. This killer did not break into homes, did not use weapons, did not even touch the victims. He only appeared, and people died. Inside the surveillance division, technicians searched thousands of hours of public footage, train stations, hotels, hospitals, airports, anything connected to the victims. Then one analyst froze. "Detective, you need to see this." A monitor flickered to life. Security footage from Prague. 3 days before Adrian Keller died, Keller sat alone at a restaurant terrace late at night. Pedestrians moved normally around him. Then a man appeared across the street, tall, dark coat, hands in pockets, standing perfectly still. Keller noticed him immediately. The victim's entire posture changed. Fear, instant fear. Keller stood up quickly and left the restaurant. The unknown man never followed. He simply watched. Another recording played. Vienna subway station, 2 days before Marcus Rain's death. Again, the same figure appeared in the background, motionless, watching. Rain noticed him while exiting the train. His face turned pale instantly. Then he rushed away in panic. The figure remained standing completely still until the cameras lost him. Elias leaned closer to the screen, enhanced his face. The technician zoomed in repeatedly, but every frame distorted strangely around the man's features, like the cameras struggled to focus on him. One analyst whispered nervously, "It's like he knows where every camera is." Another video loaded. Bucharest, a gas station. One of the remaining survivors from the fire stepped out of a car. In the reflection of the store window, the figure appeared again behind him, watching silently. The timestamp showed this happened only 6 hours earlier. The survivor was still alive. Elias grabbed his coat immediately. "Get me his address now." Rain poured across Bucharest when Elias arrived. Police cars already surrounded the apartment building. Too late. Paramedics rolled a covered body toward an ambulance. Another victim dead, no wounds, no poison, no signs of violence. Neighbors described hearing screaming from inside the apartment for nearly 20 minutes. One officer approached Elias quietly. "You should see the walls." Inside the apartment, every mirror had been smashed, furniture overturned. The victim had tried desperately to escape something, but the front door remained locked from the inside. Then Elias noticed writing scratched into the wooden floor beside the body. 3 words. "He was here." Elias stared silently. The forensic doctor spoke behind him. "Massive cardiac arrest again. No drugs? Nothing." The doctor lowered his voice. "But this time, there's something unusual." He handed Elias an evidence photo. It showed the victim's pupils moments after death, completely dilated, extreme terror, the kind usually seen before violent executions. But no violence had happened. As Elias studied the room, his phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. 1 sentence. "You still think this is murder?" Elias looked around slowly. Every officer, every paramedic, every face in the crowd outside. Anyone could be watching him. Then he noticed something across the street. A man standing beneath a broken streetlight, tall, dark coat, motionless, the exact same figure. For 1 long second, Elias stared directly at him. The figure did not move, did not hide. Then a passing bus crossed between them. And when it cleared, the man was gone. The storm over Bucharest lasted 3 straight days. By then, the media had given the killer a name. The Ghost Killer. News channels replayed the same blurry footage endlessly. The motionless figure in the dark coat, the victims collapsing in terror, the impossible locked rooms. Europe became obsessed. But inside headquarters, fear was beginning to spread among the investigators too. Another survivor from the apartment fire had disappeared overnight. No body, no note. Only a black envelope left behind. Elias stood in the briefing room, staring at the growing board of victims. Photographs, maps, timelines, every death followed the same pattern. Weeks of psychological pressure, sightings of the mysterious man, escalating paranoia, then sudden death. A woman entered the room quietly, mid-30s, sharp eyes, calm posture, Dr. Sophia Marin, forensic psychologist. She studied the board in silence before speaking. "You're treating this like a normal serial homicide." Elias crossed his arms. "Because people are dying." "Yes," Sophia replied calmly, "but not from physical attack." She pointed toward the victims' autopsy reports. These men experienced catastrophic stress responses. Elias frowned. Fear doesn't stop healthy hearts. It can. The room fell silent. Sophia opened one of the files. Extreme psychological trauma can overload the nervous system. Adrenaline spikes. Heart rhythm collapse. Neurological shock. One detective scoffed. You're saying someone scares people to death? Sophia looked directly at him. I'm saying someone understands fear better than anyone we've ever seen. Elias remained unconvinced. You think fear alone killed 4 adults? No, Sophia answered quietly. I think guilt helped. That sentence changed the room instantly, Sophia continued. Every victim from the apartment fire carried unresolved trauma, secrets, buried guilt, shame. She tapped the black envelopes. Whoever is behind this learns their deepest fears first, then slowly destroys their sense of safety. Elias stared at the photographs again. Someone was hunting psychologically, not physically. Sophia walked toward the surveillance screen and paused the image of the mysterious figure. He never rushes, never attacks, never hides completely. Why? Elias asked. Because the victims destroy themselves once they believe he's coming. Silence followed. The idea sounded impossible, yet the bodies kept appearing. Later that night, Elias reviewed the apartment fire case alone. The official report blamed faulty wiring, but witness statements told a different story. Residents smelled gasoline before the fire started. Emergency exits had been chained shut, and several survivors changed their testimonies afterward. Someone had buried the truth. Then Elias found a missing page hidden deep inside the archive, a handwritten interview with a child survivor. Luka Volkov, age 9. The statement was incomplete. Burn marks covered parts of the document, but one sentence remained readable. They heard us screaming and walked away. Elias stopped breathing for a moment. Outside his office window, lightning flashed across the city. The victims had not been random people. They were connected by something terrible. His phone suddenly rang. Private number. Elias answered immediately. Only silence answered him again. Then a child's voice whispered softly through the speaker. Ask them what they left inside the fire. The call ended. Elias stared at the phone in horror. A child's voice, young, calm, almost emotionless. Then Sophia entered the office carrying another report. Her expression looked pale. We found a survivor, she said. Elias stood instantly. Alive, for now. Where? Berlin. Sophia hesitated before continuing. She claims she saw the ghost killer face to face. And? Sophia looked disturbed. She says he knew something nobody else could possibly know. Berlin felt colder than the other cities. Not because of the weather. Because everyone Elias spoke to looked afraid. The surviving witness was placed inside a secured medical facility on the edge of the city. Armed police guarded every entrance, every hallway, every window. Yet the officers still looked nervous, like they knew security meant nothing anymore. Elias entered the hospital room slowly. The woman sat against the wall, clutching a blanket tightly around herself. Her name was Eva Richter, 38 years old, former lawyer, one of the original survivors from the Romania apartment fire. Dark circles surrounded her eyes. She had not slept in days. Dr. Sophia Marin stood beside the bed quietly. She only speaks in short bursts, Sophia whispered. Extreme paranoia. Eva suddenly looked toward Elias. He followed me here. Her voice sounded dry and weak. Elias pulled up a chair carefully. Who followed you? Eva's breathing immediately changed. You know who. The room became silent. Elias kept his voice calm. Tell me what happened. Eva stared at the window. I saw him 3 nights ago. Where? Berlin subway station. Her fingers tightened around the blanket. At first I thought he was just another passenger. She swallowed hard. But then I noticed he wasn't moving. Flashbacks shook her voice as she spoke. Everyone around him kept walking, talking, looking at phones, but he only watched me. Elias listened carefully. What did he look like? Eva hesitated, then answered softly. Normal. That confused Elias immediately. No scars, no mask. She shook her head slowly. That's what terrified me most. Her eyes filled with tears. He looked completely normal. Sophia exchanged a glance with Elias. Eva continued. He stood across the platform staring directly at me. Did he speak? No, did he approach you? Eva shook harder now, but somehow he already knew. Elias leaned forward. Knew what? A long silence followed. Then Eva whispered the words she had hidden for 20 years. I locked the emergency exit during the fire. The room froze. Eva began crying immediately. We were using the basement for illegal chemical storage. If inspectors found it, we would lose everything. Her breathing became unstable. When the fire started, people rushed toward the rear exit. Elias felt sick already, but we chained it shut earlier that week. Sophia closed her eyes quietly. Eva's voice cracked completely. There were children downstairs. Silence swallowed the room. Elias finally understood. The victims were not innocent survivors. They were responsible. Eva wiped tears from her face violently. When I saw him at the station, I suddenly heard the screams again. Her entire body trembled. I smelled smoke. I heard children crying. She looked directly at Elias. He made me relive everything, Sophia spoke gently. What happened next? Eva stared blankly ahead. He walked onto my train. Elias narrowed his eyes. And? He sat across from me. The woman's breathing accelerated rapidly now, but he never touched me. Her pulse monitor began rising sharply. He only whispered one sentence. Elias stood slowly. What sentence? Eva looked absolutely terrified. You already punished yourself. Suddenly, every monitor beside the bed started screaming. Eva clutched her chest violently. Doctors rushed into the room. Sophia grabbed Elias immediately. Move! Eva gasped desperately for air while nurses fought to stabilize her heartbeat. Then everything flatlined. One long, endless tone filled the room. Another victim, dead without injury, dead without poison, dead while surrounded by police and doctors. Elias stared at the body in disbelief. No killer entered the room. No physical attack occurred, yet she still died. Sophia looked shaken for the first time. She was already breaking psychologically, she whispered. Elias turned toward the hospital window slowly. Snow fell silently outside, and across the street, a tall figure in a dark coat stood beneath a flickering street lamp, watching the hospital, watching them. Elias ran toward the hallway instantly. By the time police reached the street, the figure was gone again. Elias locked every door inside the archive room. Rain hammered against the old station windows. Mara stood beside the evidence board in silence. Every victim photo stared back at her. No wounds, no fingerprints, no poison, nothing except fear frozen on their faces. Elias placed the final case file on the table. This one was hidden, he said. Mara slowly opened it. Inside was a photo of a young woman sitting alone in a train carriage, alive, terrified, looking directly into the camera. On the back of the photo, one sentence was written, "He only needs you to see him." Mara felt cold immediately. She remembered every victim had reported the same thing before dying. A man standing nearby, watching silently, never speaking, never touching them. Elias turned toward the old station map. There's a pattern, he whispered. Red lines connected every death location. All the lines crossed through one abandoned tunnel beneath the city. Tunnel 9, Mara frowned. That tunnel was closed 30 years ago. Elias nodded slowly. After the disappearance, Mara looked up. What disappearance? Elias hesitated. Then he opened another folder. A train conductor vanished inside Tunnel 9 in 1984. No body was ever found, but witnesses claimed they saw him walking through stations for years afterward. Always silent, always staring. Mara felt her heartbeat rising. The conductor's name was Victor Hale. Elias placed an old employee photo onto the table. Mara froze instantly. It was the same man captured in every victim's security footage. Same hollow eyes, same expressionless face. That's impossible, Mara whispered. He'd be over 70. Elias looked toward the dark tunnel entrance shown on the map. Maybe he never left. The station lights suddenly flickered. Once, twice. Then every monitor inside the archive room turned on by itself. Dozens of camera feeds appeared together, empty platforms, dark hallways, silent staircases. Then Mara noticed something moving. A man in a conductor uniform, standing motionless on platform 4, watching the camera, watching them. Elias grabbed his flashlight immediately. Mara followed him into the station corridor. The rain outside became louder. The station was nearly empty now. They reached platform 4 within seconds. Nobody was there, only a single train ticket lying on the ground. Mara picked it up carefully. Destination, Tunnel 9. Departure time, 11:11 p.m. Elias checked his watch. 11:07. A deep metallic sound suddenly echoed through the station. An approaching train, but according to the schedule, no trains were running tonight. Passengers waiting nearby slowly looked down the tunnel. Headlights appeared in the darkness. An old black train rolled forward silently. No number, no passengers, no driver visible inside. The train stopped perfectly in front of Mara. Its doors opened slowly, and inside every window sat the victims, motionless, staring directly at her. Mara stepped backward in shock. Every victim sat inside the train exactly as they had appeared before death, silent, pale, motionless. Rainwater dripped from the station ceiling. The entire platform felt colder now. Elias raised his flashlight toward the nearest window. One victim slowly turned her head. Mara froze. "She's alive," she whispered. The woman lifted one trembling hand against the glass. Then all the lights inside the train went dark at once. Complete darkness swallowed the carriages. A loud speaker suddenly crackled overhead. Final stop, Tunnel 9. The train doors remained open. Elias looked at Mara carefully. If this is connected to Victor Hale, this may be our only chance. Mara stared into the darkness inside the train. Every instinct told her not to enter. But she stepped forward anyway. Elias followed behind her. The doors slammed shut instantly. The train began moving before either of them could react. Outside the windows, the station disappeared into blackness. No tunnel lights. No sound except metal grinding against the tracks. Mara tried the emergency handle. Nothing happened. Then she noticed something strange. The passengers were gone. Every seat inside the carriage was now empty, except one. At the far end sat a man in a conductor uniform. Victor Hale. He faced away from them silently. Elias slowly pulled his gun. "Victor Hale," he shouted. "Turn around." The figure did not move. Mara walked carefully down the aisle. Her breathing became uneven. Halfway down the carriage, she noticed old photographs hanging above the seats. Every photo showed different passengers throughout the years, all smiling, all aboard this same train. Mara's stomach tightened. Each photo had a date underneath: 1984, 1985, 1986, 1987. And the final photo had today's date. It showed Mara and Elias standing on platform 4 only minutes earlier. Mara stopped walking. How is that possible? The train lights flickered again. Victor Hale slowly stood up. His movements looked unnatural, almost stiff. Then he finally turned toward them. Mara gasped. His face was horribly pale. His eyes looked clouded white. Water dripped constantly from his uniform, like he had never stopped drowning. Victor opened his mouth slowly. No voice came out. Only the sound of distant train brakes screaming through the tunnel. Then every window inside the carriage suddenly shattered at once. Cold air exploded inward. The train was no longer underground. Outside the broken windows was an endless black ocean. Tracks stretched directly across the water beneath a dead grey sky. Elias stumbled backward. "This isn't real," Victor finally spoke. "You were invited." The carriage lights died again. For several seconds, only darkness remained. Then another voice whispered beside Mara's ear. "He never touches them." Mara turned instantly. One of the dead victims was now standing directly behind her. Mara screamed and stumbled backward. The victim stood inches away from her face, eyes wide open, skin pale grey, water dripping from her hair onto the train floor, but her lips were moving. "You have to leave," she whispered. Then the train lights flashed again. The woman vanished. Elias grabbed Mara's arm. "We're getting off this train now." He fired 2 shots at the emergency lock. The bullets hit the metal door. Nothing happened. No damage. No sound of impact. As if the train itself had swallowed the bullets. Victor Hale remained standing at the end of the carriage, motionless again. The train continued across the endless black ocean. Mara looked outside the shattered windows. Far below the tracks, shapes moved beneath the water. Hundreds of them. People, walking slowly beneath the surface, all staring upward at the train. Mara stepped away from the window immediately. "What is this place?" Victor answered without emotion. "The last stop." The overhead speaker crackled again. "Arrival in 3 minutes." Elias moved closer to Victor carefully. "You killed those people." Victor tilted his head strangely. "No." The lights flickered harder now. The entire carriage shook violently. "They followed me willingly." Mara remembered the words written behind the photograph. "He only needs you to see him." Suddenly she understood. Victor never attacked anyone, never poisoned them, never touched them. People became obsessed after seeing him. They followed him, thought about him constantly, dreamed about him, until eventually they disappeared. Elias stared at Victor with anger. "What are you?" Victor's dead white eyes slowly met his. "I was alone." For the first time, emotion appeared in his voice. "Now I don't have to be." The train horn blasted loudly across the dark ocean. Ahead of them, lights appeared through the fog. An entire station stood in the middle of nowhere, ancient, flooded, half destroyed. A rusted sign slowly became visible. Tunnel 9 Terminal. The train began slowing down. Mara noticed figures waiting on the platform outside. Dozens of them, all silent. All wearing old clothes from different decades. Missing people. Every face looked empty. The train finally stopped. The doors opened with a long metallic groan. Cold wind filled the carriage. Victor stepped onto the platform first. The missing people immediately turned toward him together, like they had been waiting. Then all of them slowly looked at Mara. Elias raised his gun again. "We stay together." But Mara barely heard him. Someone else stood at the far end of the platform, a little boy, about 10 years old, wearing a small conductor hat. Mara's blood froze. She recognized him from the oldest missing persons file in the archive, Daniel Cross, the first child who vanished inside Tunnel 9 in 1984. The boy pointed silently toward the darkness beyond the station. Mara followed his gesture. Deep in the shadows, another train waited, much larger than the first one. Its windows were filled with hundreds of faces watching, and slowly all of them began smiling at her. Mara could not move. Hundreds of faces stared from the second train. Men, women, children, all smiling the exact same way. Too wide, too still. The platform beneath her feet vibrated softly. Elias stepped in front of her. "We leave now." But behind them, the first train had already disappeared. The tracks leading back across the ocean were gone. Only darkness remained. Victor Hale walked slowly toward the larger train. The missing people followed behind him in silence. Daniel Cross stayed where he was, still watching Mara carefully. Then the boy spoke for the first time. "He chose you." Mara felt cold fear spread through her chest. "Why me?" Daniel lowered his eyes. "Because you looked back." Mara remembered the security footage. Every victim had noticed Victor staring at them, and every victim had stared back, not with fear, with curiosity. That was how it started. The station lights suddenly dimmed. A loud metallic sound echoed from deep inside the larger train. Something moving, something huge. Elias grabbed Mara's hand. "We're not staying to find out." They ran across the flooded platform. Water splashed around their feet as they searched desperately for another exit. But every corridor led deeper underground. More tunnels, more tracks, more darkness. Then Mara noticed old posters hanging along the walls. Missing persons notices, hundreds of them, some dated back 40 years. Others were recent, but one poster looked brand new. Her own face stared back at her. "Missing, Detective Mara Vance." Below the photo were the words, "Expected arrival confirmed." Elias tore the poster down immediately. "This place knows who comes here," he whispered. The lights flickered again. Suddenly, every tunnel speaker activated together. A woman's voice echoed through the station. "Passengers may now board." The larger train's doors slowly opened in the distance. Inside was complete darkness. Then figures began stepping out. Not passengers, copies. Perfect copies of the missing people. But wrong somehow. Their smiles never moved. Their eyes never blinked. Mara backed away slowly. One of the copies looked exactly like Elias. Another looked exactly like Mara. The copy of Mara tilted its head. "You don't belong outside anymore," it whispered. Elias fired instantly. The bullet passed through the copy like smoke. Then all the copies began walking toward them together. Slow, silent, unstoppable. Daniel suddenly grabbed Mara's wrist. "Run before the train remembers you." Mara and Elias sprinted down the nearest tunnel. Behind them, hundreds of footsteps echoed through the station. The tunnel walls became older the deeper they ran. Rust covered the pipes overhead. Water dripped constantly from the ceiling. Then Elias suddenly stopped. Ahead of them stood a metal door marked "Control Room." Mara pushed it open quickly. Inside, dusty monitors still flickered with static, and in the center of the room sat an old recording machine, still running. A single videotape was already inside. Label, First Arrival, 1984. Mara pressed play immediately. The screen filled with static. Then a grainy image appeared. Tunnel 9 station, passengers screaming, running. And standing at the center of the platform was not Victor Hale. It was something else entirely. Tall, impossible thin, its face hidden beneath shifting darkness. And beside it stood a young Victor Hale, terrified. The creature slowly leaned toward him. Then the tape cut to black. A final sentence appeared on the screen. The conductor was never in control. The control room went silent. Only the sound of the old tape machine continued clicking in the darkness. Mara stared at the frozen black screen. Her hands trembled slightly. Victor Hale had not created this. He had survived it. Elias searched through dusty shelves beside the monitors. Old reports covered the floor. Most were soaked with water damage. Then he found a notebook. Train maintenance logs from 1984. He opened the final page carefully. The passengers hear it before they see it. The voice comes from the tunnels. If you answer it, the station remembers your face. Mara looked toward the tunnel outside the control room. Footsteps echoed again. Closer now. Slow. Dragging. Hundreds of them. Daniel Cross suddenly appeared in the doorway. "Hurry," he whispered. "It's waking up." Mara moved toward him immediately. "What is it?" Daniel looked terrified. "It lives beneath the tracks." The station lights flickered violently. Every monitor inside the control room turned on at once. Different camera feeds filled the screens. Copies of Mara and Elias searched the tunnels outside, smiling, getting closer. Then one screen showed the large train again. Its doors were still open, but now something enormous moved inside the darkness, too large to fit through the carriage. Elias stepped back from the monitors slowly. "We need to get out of this station." Daniel shook his head. "You can't leave once it remembers you." Mara grabbed the boy's shoulders. "There has to be a way." Daniel hesitated. Then he pointed toward a map hanging beside the control panel. An emergency rail line. One track led away from Tunnel 9 toward the surface, but beside it, someone had written a warning in red paint. "Do not let it follow." A deafening screech suddenly echoed through the tunnels. The entire station shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Then the lights died completely. Darkness swallowed everything. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then Mara heard breathing behind her. Not Elias, not Daniel, something much larger. A voice whispered directly beside her ear. "You stayed too long." The emergency lights suddenly activated. Dim red light filled the room, and Mara saw it. The creature from the videotape stood behind the control room glass. Its body was unnaturally tall, its arms bent the wrong way. Darkness shifted constantly across its face like moving smoke, but its eyes were visible, hundreds of eyes, opening and closing beneath the shadow. Daniel backed into the corner, crying silently. "It found us!" The creature tilted its head toward Mara. Then every speaker inside the station activated together. "Mara Vance," the voice whispered. "Boarding complete." The wall behind them exploded inward. Copies flooded into the control room, smiling, reaching. Elias fired wildly while grabbing Mara's arm. "Run!" They escaped through the back corridor as the creature's shadow stretched across the walls behind them. Sirens screamed throughout the station now. The emergency rail line waited ahead in darkness. An old maintenance train sat abandoned on the tracks. Elias jumped into the driver's seat desperately. "Please work." Behind them, the copies emerged from the tunnel, hundreds now, and walking slowly behind them all was Victor Hale. For the first time, he looked afraid. He stared directly at Mara. Then he said the words nobody else had spoken. "It wants to wear your face next." Elias slammed the controls forward. For one horrible second, nothing happened. Then the maintenance train roared to life. The engine screamed through the tunnel as the wheels lurched across the tracks. Mara grabbed the side rail to steady herself. Behind them, the copies rushed forward together, smiling, reaching, almost close enough to touch. Victor Hale remained standing on the platform, watching silently. Then the creature stepped behind him. Its towering shadow swallowed the entire station. Hundreds of eyes opened across the darkness covering its face, and every eye focused on Mara. The train shot forward into the tunnel. The copies disappeared behind them, but the whispers did not. They filled the narrow passage around the tracks. "Mara, stay, look back." Elias pushed the train faster. The tunnel walls blurred past them. Rusty pipes burst overhead. Water rained onto the tracks. Daniel sat curled in the corner, shaking violently. "It follows through memory," he whispered. "If you keep thinking about it, it stays with you." Mara tried to focus on the tunnel ahead, but images kept forcing themselves into her mind. The smiling faces, the dark train, the creature's eyes. Then she noticed something terrifying. The tunnel ahead was changing. The walls no longer looked underground. Old wallpaper appeared beside the tracks. Family photographs, lamps, furniture. The tunnel was becoming places from Mara's own memories. Elias saw it too. "No," he whispered. The train burst through another section of tunnel. Now they were speeding directly through Mara's childhood home. Her old hallway stretched endlessly beside the tracks. Photos of her family covered the walls, but every face inside the pictures had been scratched away. Daniel began crying harder. "It's inside your head now." The whispers became louder, closer. Then Mara saw movement ahead on the tracks. A woman standing motionless, her mother, dead for 15 years. "Mara," the woman whispered softly, "come home." Elias grabbed Mara before she could move. "That's not her." The figure smiled unnaturally wide. Its face began splitting open slowly from the mouth upward. Hundreds of eyes opened beneath the skin. The maintenance train smashed directly through it. The figure burst apart into black smoke. The tunnel transformed again, instantly. Now the tracks led through endless train carriages filled with passengers. Every passenger had Mara's face. All of them turned toward her together, all smiling. The engine suddenly started failing. Sparks exploded from the controls. Elias hit the board repeatedly. "We're losing power." Ahead, a faint white light appeared at the end of the tunnel. The surface, the exit. But behind them, darkness moved rapidly through the tunnel. Catching up, the creature was following. Its long limbs scraped against the tunnel walls as it crawled closer with impossible speed. The whispers became screams. Every version of Mara inside the train carriages stood up together and spoke with the same voice. "You already belong to us." The maintenance train shook violently. Daniel pointed ahead desperately. "There's the gate!" A massive steel emergency door stood near the tunnel exit, half open. If they reached it, they might escape. If they failed, the creature would reach them first. Elias pushed the engine to maximum speed. The train screamed toward the gate. Behind them, the creature opened its mouth, and the entire tunnel screamed with it.